myself a look, I'm at the corner just in time to see the bus fly by. It's alright, cause I'm safe out the bell. If the teacher pops a test, I know I'm in a mess, and my dog ate all my homework last night. Riding low in my chair, she won't know that I'm there. If I can hand it in tomorrow, it'll be alright. It's alright, cause I'm safe out the bell. It's alright, cause I'm safe out the bell.
And we are back. Well, we're not back because it's actually the first episode of Natty Muscle Radio, Saved by the Dumbbell.
I can't believe you remembered the name. I'm really happy that you remembered.
I am. Look at that. First one take. So we only took 40 minutes, nearly an hour, to get to the fact that I don't have the Skype app, and that is the whole reason why my video is shit every week. So good. So anyway, apart from myself, we're joined by none other than,
As seen on the BBC.
as seen on the BBC, Don't Talk, because James Poyner has also been seen on the BBC.
Channel 4, actually.
So,
Yeah.
how was it? Okay, then. Well, what's better? What would you rather be, Channel 4 or BBC?
BBC is an institution. Channel 4 is notorious for being the kind of, I don't know, the naughty child.
All I'm going to say is they didn't edit a toilet flush into my documentary, so...
No, I didn't.
Good point.
Do you know what I'm really fucked off with? With all TV people, right? They seem to like my face in the camera, but any time I have a talking part in Aaron's and in yours, I still didn't make the final cut both times.
Unlucky.
Like, well, not put him in. Not put him in. So
Yeah, it's me and Mr. James Poyner.
what you should have said is we're joined by DFAC Pro, Robert Waterhouse.
Yeah.
Also DFAC Pro, Kung Fu Panda. Any other nicknames for you? Oh yeah, never. And not DFAC Pro, Aaron Bevan, and not DFAC Pro, James Poyner.
It's about right.
So
Yeah.
there you go. So there's the accolades, so to speak, and the intro. So what are we talking about this week?
Right, so special topic for everybody since we've got a round table, and we thought we'd just discuss show experiences, first show, maybe give some hints and tips for people doing the first shows, and then most importantly, funny show experiences. I'd like to think that you guys have got some funny characters that you've met, some funny things that have gone on backstage and stuff like that. So it'd be good to get an insight on some of that from a couple of DFAC pros and also a terrestrial TV superstar like James.
Excellent. And Marcus, have you seen both of those documentaries?
No.
No, not a bodybuilding fan.
No.
So I've seen both. Okay.
Yeah, I don't really watch anything, do I? I don't really watch anything.
Not even your waistline.
I did that one episode of I don't even know what it's called, fucking the Michael Jordan thing, and I haven't watched any other ones. So
What?
How can you
I
watch one
want
of that?
to. It's just that, you know, I got a kid. That's it.
Oh.
Still manage to find some time to eat all those Oreos, though, don't you?
Yeah, true.
So, indeed. So, I would say, I don't know which is the better documentary if we're picking documentaries to give you, what should we say, like the documentary awards. For.
Yeah, the Natty Muscle Radio Documentary Awards, of which there's 2 nominations, it would seem.
So the highlight for me was definitely, obviously, James had a cake. That was obviously part of his most muscular shot. But I did, for the whole time that it was being made, say that it just looked like Gollum from Lord of the Ring. So I proceeded just to send in my precious memes for probably like the first 2 weeks after that. So
There was also a classic moment in the restaurant afterwards where they wanted to film me unveiling the cake and standing next to it with no top on. But the only issue with that was it was a restaurant full of people. So I was getting like wolf whistled, and then it was like, oh, we need to get a few different shots, so just had to keep pulling this sheet.
I know, and we all had to act surprised each time, didn't we? Oh,
Wow, it looks amazing. Wow.
Wow. Chris Edge is on prep, ready for like dieting for a show, eating out of Tupperware where we've all got Chinese and we're about to tuck into a cake. And then the restaurant owner came out in like a jazzy jacket. Do you remember, Rob?
Yeah.
A jazzy jacket with a guitar. I was like, what is this guy doing?
Why is this
TV
documentary?
contract.
It's supposed to be on bodybuilding. Well, it was actually on cakes, wasn't it? It was on Molly's Cakes, which is pretty good, to be fair. So, yeah, so it looks like, Aaron, you're second place.
Well, you say that, but what about this? Did your documentary, James, have a comedy toilet flush?
Unfortunately not. So for that reason and that reason alone, I think the award has to go to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, given I'm the only bodybuilder on this podcast that has never won a show, I'll win the documentary award. That's absolutely fine. So thank you.
Wow. Oh, no. Shit.
I thought I'd say it before anybody else did.
Oh, I hate the way you got in there first.
Unlucky.
So now you can be introduced as not the DFAC pro and never won anything.
Yeah, pretty much.
Bevan.
Just wormed my way in.
So, yeah. Okay, cool. So any other housekeeping this week to think of, first of all?
Please all like, subscribe, and do all those things. We're getting a few hundred views per video now, and about 20 likes. So you've got no excuse just to press like. And if you're watching it every week and don't like it, then there's something wrong with you. Yeah. So just press like.
Not a lot to ask to become full-time podcast guys.
Yeah. Well, even just subscribe and just turn off notifications if you're not that bothered. You know, just be nice. So
yeah, exactly. Don't even have to watch it. Just subscribe. Yeah. So yeah. So where should we kick this off this week then? Are we going to get straight into it as we've already wasted a bit of time, and then maybe if there's some banter that comes up during it?
Yeah, I think we've got enough people and enough stories, so we can crack right into it. James, why don't you kick off with maybe some little tidbits and any characters, funny stories that you've picked up from shows?
So obviously, first of all, I'd only ever gone to BMBF shows because my brother Chris, he did the juniors in 2011 and then he did novice in 2013. I think he was robbed for the pro card that year by some guy, but I'm not sure who it was. So yeah, I'd obviously seen him at shows, and then we all trained like growing up, and then me and Tom were thinking in 2015 that we wanted to do a show. So he did the Scottish one that year, and then I did the Northern. So two ends of the year. So yeah, so it was always going to be like BMBF because that's all I ever knew. I didn't know of any I didn't know there were any other federations because I didn't follow natural bodybuilding. All I knew was I trained, and then my brother did BMBF and did pretty well at it. And then I'd also had the opportunity. I'd seen him at the finals, Chris, and he did really well. He obviously won his class, and then he went to Miami, and that's actually when I first met Rob and I met Marcus. And Marcus probably don't remember this, but I flew there with Chris, and the first time I met Rob Waterhouse he was by a microwaving raw chicken between two plates, and we're like, is that safe? He's like, oh, that's fine. As long as you cook it through,
it'll be fine. And basically, if I get ill and sick, I just get more shredded, so I'm not worried about it. So
yeah, you're only like a stomach bug or food poisoning away from the best condition of your life. Everybody knows that.
Which, if you ask Daz Cooper about, it's a true story. So I think his flight got delayed, and for some reason, he didn't even buy any food and water while he was in the airport. Maybe because he didn't want to buy the food, but the water side, I don't even know why he did that. But maybe he was drying out. I don't know. But like, yeah, he got like a stomach bug, and like he was just basically throwing up. And then when he turned up to Washington, like he was absolutely peeled out of his mind. It was like, what? And he's like, yeah, I might just get sick every year.
It's like licking a petri dish.
Like the new prep for everyone, just like licking raw chicken like the night before.
Yeah.
Oh,
You got to time it right.
that is pretty low, isn't it? As far as how to stoop to have to cook your chicken in a microwave, just like cooking in its own water, where obviously all the water is coming out of the. But then everybody was doing the same thing, so but it tastes as good as it sounds.
This was before the days of Whole Foods being opposite.
Yeah. Right.
So I ended up doing the Northern show that year. Did the novice class, and it was pretty good show. Like, I ended up winning the class, and there was some good people in the class. Like David Hitchens, who went on to do other shows, and Martin Gillen, and a few.
What show was it? Sorry.
It was a Northern show in 2015.
Okay.
Ended up winning the class, and then went on to the overall. And the overall was like, and that was like more than I ever expected. All I wanted to do was go on the stage and compete. And then ended up going to the overall, and Richard Robinson won it. But it was a good overall class. I think Theo was in there. Dan Argent was in there as a junior or a teen. And yeah, it was good. But I had like the experience of both my brothers had competed. So while I didn't have a coach, I was like picking their brains the whole time. So I knew, like, in terms of prep, like I was sort of being guided by them, like just bouncing stuff off them.
What's the age gaps between you and your brothers?
So I'm the oldest. I'm 32. Chris is a year younger, 31, and Tom is
12 years old.
And Tom's 2 years younger than him. So yeah, quite close.
Yeah, cool. I always thought that Chris was the oldest for some reason, but that's probably just because he competed first. So.
Yeah, everyone thinks that, and he's the tallest as well, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, but he looks like a CrossFitter now, so.
Were you nervous doing your first show, James?
You know what? I actually wasn't, because I've been to so many, like watching my brothers and stuff. I sort of knew what to expect, and like that's one recommendation I would give to anyone. Like, go and watch a show before you even do it. You can think about doing it, just so you know how it flows, and like you can work out the pre-judging and then the evening show and what to expect from that. But like, I wasn't that nervous at all. And then when I went on stage, like as soon as I went out there, I was like, "Oh, this is amazing!" Like as soon as like you can't see, well, I couldn't see anything in the crowd, but I could just hear him, and then the lights.
That's one of the best bits, isn't it? Like the fact that the lighting is so bright, you literally can't see past the judges.
Yeah.
So it's definitely more nerve-wracking where you've got, like, I did one of the PCA shows, and the lights in the auditorium are on really bright. People are just walking around like getting a beer and stuff. And then it's like, so you can basically see that when you're on stage, you can see what everyone's doing, so it feels more nerve-wracking. But obviously with BNBF, yeah, you just like rub it in the head, like, just like, I can't see nothing. So yeah. Good stuff. So Northern. So Marcus, what about you? Where was your first show, and how many years ago was that?
First show was the Midlands show in 2013. That was when it was held at Derby. Still at Derby, not in Birmingham.
Was it when you carved up on rice and jam?
No, I didn't have any carbs.
Okay.
Well, maybe a rice cake or two. It's like that fish and rice cake kind of thing. It's like literally, I did not know what I was doing. I've never watched anything to do with bodybuilding. I just basically, I was a PT at the time, so I thought it'd be good to like promote my PT. Which then after this competition, I ended up stopping doing PTing anyway. But yeah, I thought it'd be good to like boost business. Say I've done a show and all that. So I just went for it. Basically, I learned how to do the posing on YouTube. I was just on, when people come up to you and say, "Oh, so how do you eat carbs? You shouldn't eat carbs, should you? They're bad for you and all this." And it's that kind of thing. When I was starting out, it was just like, yeah, I shouldn't eat no carbs. So I was eating fish, and I probably had 1 or 2 rice cakes, and I lost like 3 stone in about 11 weeks. I was going to the gym 19 times a week. I had an hour in the morning. And I was doing my 5 days of training, and then I was doing every day an hour in the morning and night. So that's 14 times, and then my 5 times of weightlifting. And people in the gym, I never tell anyone when I'm doing a show anyway. And it was just me and she was my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, Cam. And we used to just sneak off the shows and just do them and stuff. And so I didn't tell no one in the gym. And people were asking, like, my cousin, like, oh, is Marcus okay? Is he ill? Because obviously I'm losing all this weight rapid. And I said, no, I'm just trialing out something for my PT business. Anyway, so I went to the show. The first thing I remember is I didn't tan my face or my hands. And I've got my hoodie on. I've got my hoodie on like this, yeah.
You look like one of the geisha girls for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I've walked in now, and I've looked around, and everyone's tanned up, right? And I thought, fuck, I feel like a prick. So I've gone upstairs to register. And Vicky, I can remember seeing Vicky, and she just looked up, and she looked at me, and I swear she must have thought, is this guy competing? Because literally I had no tan on at all. And I came back down to see Cam at the front of the building thing. And I was like, just going crazy, like, I feel like a fucking prick. Like, I look like a twat. I ain't got no tan on or anything like that. So then we went to the disabled toilet. She tanned me up. Came back in, and I met Will, New Zealand Will. So I met him. And he started talking to me for a bit, and then I thought, you know what, it got a bit quiet in the foyer, so I thought, let me see what's going on. So I went down, went to the pump room, ended up in the pump room just behind the stage, and I asked a woman there, and I think it might have been his wife, Anne, and I asked her, oh, so when do I go on? And she said, oh, what class you in? I said, novice. She said, you're going on in a minute. Yo, I ran straight back, past all the changing rooms, ran upstairs, just burst open the door, and I was like, Cam, give me my bag, I'm going on. Ran downstairs into the changing rooms. I haven't got my trunks on under my outfit or under my hoodie and stuff. So I just started getting naked. And then Lewis comes in, Big Lou. He's doing novice as well, right? And everyone who knows Big Lou is like super chill. So he just comes in, yes, bro, what you saying? And I was like, oh, I'm going on. He's like, why, what class you in? And he said, I'm novice. He's like, I'm doing novice too. He started getting naked. And this is the first time I've ever met, this is how I met Lewis. So we both started just whipping it all off, got our trunks on, ran. And we didn't get no pump on. We just went, literally just went.
You didn't need a pump. You just been on a jog for the last 20 minutes. By the sound.
I don't even think we put glaze on. And we just jumped on. And then, yeah, that was my first show.
And then you both won.
Wasn't that the first year Lewis competed and looked like just a rake?
Yeah, I actually beat him.
He sent me, I met him at the workout a year after this first show, and he was getting ready, and I remember seeing him. He looked really impressive. Saw him just doing some posing in one of the studios, and one of the promos I was working on, which happens to be the gym that Claire used to manage. And I walked in and he was like, oh yeah, like I competed last year. I was like, oh, well, I judged for the federation. I said, I probably remember you. And then I looked, he showed me the picture, and I was like, nah, I don't remember you. Basically just like making up the numbers in the back. And then yeah, that transformation from that year to the next year was like ridiculous. I was like, I can't believe you're the same guy, honestly. So he must have been on the rice cake and fish diet as well, I guess.
Well, if he looked shit and you didn't remember him, Lou's a very memorable person as well, so he must have looked really shit.
So where did you place in that show?
I think second or maybe third, I can't remember. But I beat Lewis, so that's the main thing.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And you, Aaron, where was yours again? First show?
So first BNBF show was Midlands. That would have been 17, right? But I did do some. Not many people know. I'd done some NPA shows years before that. With me and a friend, just were. I'm not the leanest guy. when walking around, and neither was my friend at the time. And so we said, should we just try and not be fat? And we both were into bodybuilding, so should we try and both not be fat and then maybe have an end goal and do a bodybuilding show? He never ended up doing it. I don't think he felt he could quite get in the condition. I had no place on a bodybuilding stage condition-wise. Maybe it was around about sort of guest spot Irish for you, Rob. Sort of kind of just not really.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Pretty lean, yeah.
Pretty shredded, to be honest. Pretty damn shredded. But I had a ball, and I just had a good time just kind of being on stage. It was MPA, so I was covered in dream tan. That was an interesting looking vibe, kind of very golden. Fast forward to when I found the BMBF then, and when I did the Midlands, and it's funny you mentioned not having any tan on Marcus, because anyone that remembers me from that show, 2017 Midlands, you would have thought I had no tan on either. But what I didn't know about was dark as that was the problem. And I actually had about 8 coats of liquid sun rays on, but it just kept making me go more and more yellow. and translucent. It did not, the sun. Actually, it did not matter how much I put on, because of this nice Irish tan that I've got anyway, which you can't tell at the moment because I'm back in my boudoir lighting for this week's special edition. But yeah, so then I did went and did the Midlands. Oh no, Midlands did a Northern. What was a couple of weeks after that, and I found Dream Tan and looked well better, so that was cool. But yeah, I sympathise with the tan situation. Surely everyone's got an issue that they've had with tan and skin prep at some point, because it's just one of those weird ones, isn't it? Where, especially when you're beginning, and definitely if we're going to give any advice to beginners, it's got to be to try and do something before you get on stage. And I see what you look like with some tan on or something, because I guess you were lucky, Marcus, that you got away with putting the tan on in the toilets like 2 minutes before you went on stage. But sometimes you just don't know what you're going to look like with the tan on the lights, and it can make or break you. You know, it really can.
You seem to be before the time before dark as. We used to have, obviously, Jan Tanner was to go to.
That's the one I use, Jan Tanner.
Every man and his dog had the tan protocol down to a T. So there was a lad who used to compete who was convinced that you'd start tanning 2 weeks out from the show, but you showered every day. So you showered, washed it off, and built yourself up. So what ended up happening was, rather than, because you should really, for you first timers out there, skin prep is massive. The longer that you exfoliate your skin out from a show, the more chance you've got that you want to balance the pH in the skin. So therefore, obviously, your tan goes on like almost like you've coloured it in on paint. That's what you want, like on the computer. So clicking yourself in. But the tan protocol just got funnier and funnier, because everyone, had just said like, oh, I've got it down to a T. You do this, do that. But what ended up happening, people who did that used to shower their tan off, is that it would just be the patchiest tan. It always seemed to be light around certain areas, really dark knees and elbows, and just the worst tan face ever. So if you're thinking about tanning 2 weeks out from a show and washing it off, it's definitely not a good idea.
I've had trouble with tan face as well. Cara actually tried to do makeup for one of the shows. And we put it on and literally just looked at it and was like, probably not going to go with this.
So I had the same experience at the Body Power show. I did all of my body with the mitt, but used like a makeup sponge on my face, and it turned it green. So you can't really tell on some of the pictures, but on some it's like, what the hell is going on there? So yeah, use the mitt on your face any first time at all. Don't use a sponge.
It can drastically change how you look when you don't tan your face. Or there's one guy, Felix, who used to compete, who never used to tan the back of his ears. Used to always really irritate me, because he would literally turn around and have the whitest, biggest ears, but everything else was tanned. So it's just like, it used to be like, not just get a little bit behind the ears and you'd be sweet. So yeah, and feet and hands as well.
I had like a reoccurring like nightmare that I wouldn't sort of like tan me feet or cut me toenails or anything before the stage. And I go on stage and look down and be like, oh shit, what have I done? Yeah.
Or forgot your posing trunks. That was always the one.
Mhm.
Always the one. So I guess that we can kind of keep a little bit of structure with it then, really. But I mean, so maybe like your biggest mistake that you made maybe for your first show, and like any really good advice that you can offer to anyone. I mean, we can start with you, James, if you like. So first of all, was there any mistakes you made doing your first show? Obviously you won, so not too many.
Well,
Didn't make any mistakes, actually. I just walked out split trophy, so.
I do remember when I asked like my brothers about peak week and stuff, they were like, oh, you've never done it before. So I was like, I'll just keep everything the same then. So even on show day, I was having like my normal meals, but my meals were like chicken, potatoes, and broccoli and lots of veg. So I was having like loads of broccoli. And I don't know how I didn't go on stage looking all bloated because I was still having broccoli and stuff. So that was probably one mistake that I made, is just like not taking out the fiber stuff. Just I should have just kept it as basic stuff, because I don't know how I didn't end up bloating up on stage with that. But yeah, like you don't always have to do a peak week, especially if it's your first show. But just be mindful of the sort of stuff that you're eating, because it can, like, just obviously use your prep as a baseline of what bloats you and what doesn't, because that's the last thing you want on the stage.
The only problem with like not doing a peak week or having like trying to do a normal day is that show day completely throws you out. And I've spoke to Darren about this. It's like what you end up doing is like either like missing some salt on your meals, or it might be that you just don't drink enough water, or you're like going to the toilet more because you're nervous. Like there's a number of things. It's really hard to try and replicate a normal day on show day, even if you have quite good structure in place, because you know the amount of times you just end up like say missing things because you're posing or going to the venue. It's like you'd be surprised at how many times I run through with Darren, and it's like, did you do this? It's like, oh no, like I didn't do that because, you know, didn't have enough time to get their meals in, or I was up 2 hours earlier than normal. So like trying to actually replicate it exactly the same day is really tough, actually.
Yeah.
I think
It's not the same either, is it? Sorry, Marcus, go on.
as soon as you do something wrong, let's say like you missed a meal or whatever, or you feel like you haven't got enough potatoes, then it starts playing. It's like a domino effect. It starts playing in your mind, and you think, well, then should I double my meals, and you shouldn't probably double your meals or whatever. Then it's just like, you know, if you didn't drink enough water the night before, you think you should top it up. It's just stuff like that. Just the stress, I think, from show.
You're a nervous person as well.
Yeah.
In terms of advice, like 2 bits I'd give is posing. Go to the posing clubs, because that's what I did. Like they were run by Joe Perusa and Paul George, who's like a IFBB bodybuilder, so he was a bit like intense, but it was worth it. Like I wouldn't say my posing was dead on, but going to them definitely helped. Like there's only so much you can learn by watching YouTube videos and things like that. And you can tell the people who haven't practiced it and the guys that haven't been to the clubs, and they're free of charge, so why wouldn't you go? And there was a lot of guys that used to, like, I've been going to the Northern since that show, so that's 4 years, and there's a lot of guys that compete year after year, and the posing's always shit, and you say to them, go to the clubs, like they're free, just go, yeah, I will do, and they never do, and then it's like a recurring cycle.
I know it, mate. I know it. Don't need any help. So
How many people have you seen as well that you think they could have won that show?
Exactly.
You know, there's a couple. I can't remember the guy's name. There's a guy. I think it was 2017. I think he travelled from. I want to say he travelled from overseas, like Holland or somewhere like that. And he was incredible. Like the guy was in shape. He was hard, dense muscle. Honestly, he didn't know. Like when he said didn't know how to pose, he literally didn't know. He just stood there. And then his quarter turn, he turned, you know, and he's kind of watching what other people were doing on stage. And that, you know, I've seen so many people that, you know, could not only do better, but win if they just took that information.
Wasn't he the guy, he was that good, he still won, even though he was posing, like he was like...
I can't even remember if he did or not now, yeah, but he was that good. Like he was that good that he could have been even better, you know, like he could have gone on to finals or whatever. And, but yeah, I've seen so many people that just don't hit the potential because they didn't learn even how to basic pose.
Well, I always say to people, like you can always outpose a better physique. If someone's really good and they don't pose and show off their strengths and stuff, you'll be able to outpose them. Well, unless you're shit and then and they're really good. It don't matter if they don't pose. But I mean, generally, yeah, you can definitely outpose a better physique.
No, you're dead right there, I think, because there's guys that I've seen a lot of people that maybe like look good in the gym, or and you see backstage and you think, oh, they're gonna win or whatever, and then you see it get on stage and there's maybe like a lack of professionalism, not really knowing where to stand and stuff like that, and then there's posing, there's learning how to pose, there's being conditioned to pose as well, because it's tough. And if you're in a tough class that is, the judges can't quite decide, who to place in, or a big class, you'd be going round a few times. And if you've just done like a couple of quarter turns in your kitchen once a week, then when you're on like the third, fourth rotation and still on symmetry, you're going to be a sweaty bastard. And that's not a good look for anybody.
Talking about how like looking good in a tank top, we have a running joke at Unity, because if you ever walk into Unity on the Arnold side of the wall, the mirrors are only half length, so you can only really see up to your waistline. Now we've got like some guys in there who've competed and stuff, and the joke is at the gym that they've never been on the left-hand side of the gym because they've never seen their bottom half, but they look great in the top half. It's like, I don't think he's even been to that side of the gym. So Mr. Olympia in a tank top. But talking about posing, I've got to give props to Marcus on this one. I don't think I know anyone else who practices posing as much as what he does. I mean, you can put Marcus through 5 rounds of rotations and he'll not. So props to you for that one.
Like Cam. So my wife, she used to hammer me with the poser. So even if I was tired and we had a long day, sometimes our shifts might be 16 hours or plus, and it was, I was prepping for a show. She would still say, do that, and she'll hold it, and I'll just be holding a pose, and in my head I'll be thinking, all right, well, call the next shot, and she can see in my face that I'm getting pissed off, but she'll just bear with me, and she'll just be like, no, hold it, and then she'll be like, lats, and stuff like that, and it's just, make a good team. So she pushes me through, so that's really good. Like, I've got someone, lucky to have someone to like push me like that. So.
Would it be fair to say that you're a little bit more sensitive when you're on prep?
Very sensitive.
So when I first did, in fact, I'll let you tell the story, but Marcus was convinced at the start of his diet last year, when he won his pro card mind, that I actually hated him.
I can't remember.
So tell everyone how that went about and why did that happen.
I can't remember. You're going to have to tell it.
Okay, so basically, I sent this check-in video and I was like, well, you're not that fat. I was actually a bit disappointed that he wasn't as fat as I was hoping, because I've got way fatter. But like, basically I said, well, we've got the qualifier. If we're going to do the Midlands, then we need to get your arse in gear, because what we need to do is we need to kind of be ready, and I'd like to be able to build your food back up a little bit. Now, like a couple of weeks went past, and like I made a change, and then he lost a little bit of weight, and then I made a change and he lost a little bit of weight, but it really wasn't moving like I would kind of hope it to. So like I pulled his food down a little bit. We're talking maybe 10 grams of rice or something, or like I think I maybe changed rice to potatoes. And he was like, I turned around to Cam and said, why does Rob hate me so much? And he actually went through a conversation in his head. He thought that I actually didn't like him because I was not making him eat very much food. And so he was convinced for a while. And he said to me at the end of prep, I think it was, he was like, I don't know why I even thought like that, but I just thought you didn't like me anymore because I lowered your food.
Well, like 2016, and you was like prepping Ben and other people, and you was giving them bananas, and I wasn't allowed one banana. And I was like, what's wrong with this guy, man? Just give me a banana. But it's all a bit.
Banana at the end of the world, wasn't it? So yeah, funny. What about your advice then, Marcus, for anyone else, or is there anything you did in your first show that you would say was like a massive, apart from not turning up on time for your category, pretty much?
Oh yeah, definitely. You have to turn up on time, and just like you said, I think it was James saying, go to a show first. I've never been to a show before. So I didn't know that whole process. I didn't know what was going on. When I went to that first show, I was just sitting with Cam in the foyer. I didn't go down and like try and communicate with people. So I would say get there early. And one of the best things about competing is the people that you meet. So get there early and just start talking to people, and you just learn so much. It'll calm your nerves. You'll find out that other people are in the same situation as you. So yeah, I would say definitely go there early. But the biggest advice I would say to anyone wanting to compete, well, one, definitely go do it. You know, I always say to people, if you ever think about doing it, the worst thing is regretting not ever doing it. So one, get there and do it. And then at least you know if you like it in the first place and how to progress from it. My biggest advice would be get a coach 100%, and then believe in the process. Because even when I'm getting, obviously Rob's my coach, so even when I'm getting shredded and I'm feeling crap, I can always turn to him and say,
"Why'd you hate me?"
Yeah. I'm just like,
is my chest hair long enough? Does it need to be?
Pretty much. So yeah, I would say, and get a coach, because that's took a lot of weight off my shoulders. Because a lot of people come up to me and say, "Oh, do you do this? Do you do that? Or can you advise us this?" And it's easy for me to say, "No, man, just get a coach." Like, I'm not there. Don't research it, because that's what I did, and it just. I think with me, when I did my first show and I was doing all that cardio, not eating carbs, and I think a lot of people go through that because they think if you're losing weight, you shouldn't eat carbs, and cardio equals shreds, pretty much. So that's what they think, and I was in the same thing from just doing research on Google, and I think that was detrimental to my physique at the time.
That's important, I think, Max. You made 2 good points. I'd add to him and say, you're dead right about the just talking to people at shows, because I honestly think the worst thing that you can do is be the guy in the corner with his hood up and his headphones on and being like just kind of trying to be angry because you think that that's what you need to do, because you kind of like go into war or whatever, you know, like battling and all that kind of stuff. And all right, you take it seriously, you know, and if you're really into it and you prep for so long, I get why you'd want to do that. Yeah, and I've been kind of mistaken to kind of like be a little bit nervous and like be a little bit kind of cloaked when I've been at a show, like, you know, competing. But honestly, just get down there, you know, meet the people that you're competing with, you know, get to know them a little bit, get to know the people that are running the show and stuff like that, so you're not intimidated when you get there. You know, say hello to people and just realize it's the biggest cliche, but the kind of that notion that the work is done. It's almost true, because as we just said, you've got to pose on stage and stuff like that. But it really is, like, it's the time to enjoy it, because if you don't, you'll look back on it and think, oh, that's why it sucked, because I didn't take on the whole experience, you know. So really, really do just use it to make friends as well, because, you know, the 4 of us on this call only know each other through bodybuilding. If each of us were sat in the corner trying to be moody, we wouldn't be doing this, you know. So that's important.
I think that's you know, it's like a massive point to think about, because when I first started competing, I went to the show like I used to when I used to compete in athletics, and it was very much you didn't talk to the other athletes. It was very much like everyone sizing each other up. And definitely I've been to other shows. You did a UKBFF show, and it was very much like that. There was like a really strange atmosphere backstage. Like, people were like, you know, so much check each other out, but it was kind of like, you know, some people wouldn't maybe like pump up with their clothes on and only take them off at the last minute and all that kind of stuff. And that's generally when I did my first show, apart from speaking to a few people like Big Will. He was there because he was helping out backstage and things like that. But yeah, like, I was very much in that mentality of like, you know, you're going to war with everybody. And it was, it made such a difference. Like, we always laugh about it now, but when we do like the Grand Prix and everything, like, it's just the best time backstage. Like, it's so jokes, just like laughing at everyone else and like nicking each other's dumbbells and just being chilled. And then, like, you know, the amateurs would come into the room to pump up to go on after us, and it would be like, you know, you could cut the atmosphere with a knife. They're all just like, you know, sat there and talking around, but it does make such a big difference when you can enjoy the day then, because then regardless of kind of, you know, where you place or whatever, you know, you might, as I said, you might meet someone who then becomes like, you know, one of your training partners down the line. And, you know, same like when I met you at the Posing Club era, and it's like, you know, who'd have thought that, you know, a couple of years down the line we're doing podcasts and we're the best friends ever. So
no, yes, you're dead right. And and I say it to everybody, you know, one of the things that come up on best bodybuilding documentary of all time, BBC Two, Miriam Margolis, check it out, was they were really trying to pigeonhole it down like bodybuilding's really bad and it's extreme dieting and stuff like that, and they cut this out at the end, and I knew they would, because they were trying to make it sound a certain way. So she asked me at the end, you know, what are you going to do now? And I said, because all the sacrifices we've had to make during this time, not eating and stuff like that with friends, I'm going to go out and I'm going to have a big meal with all my friends. She goes, so you've sacrificed and you've had to sacrifice a lot. That's really bad, isn't it? I just stopped them and said, what you're failing to understand is that the sacrifice was that I'm not going to go out and enjoy food with the friends that have met bodybuilding. So I wouldn't be going for this meal and I wouldn't be having this celebration if I'd not met the people, if I wasn't doing the bodybuilding. And that's it really, is competing's great. You know, we all enjoy it. We all have goals, different goals. But actually, the gym sessions on a Sunday, the posing clubs, I would argue I enjoy going and watching a show fat in the off season more than doing it. You know, like seeing my friends on stage and them doing well and stuff like that. And that's only if you actually meet people. That's only if you actually reach out to people, and that starts backstage, I would say.
And that's the good thing about having like the posing clubs now, how they've evolved. It's a lot more people who come down now who are in the off season. Like people just come down to train and then go to Five Guys afterwards. Like I much prefer that than actually get in shape and like wanting to then pose and then like I've got to go home and have a black coffee.
I've gone to the people in work because they see my physique change and be thin and fat, and they're like, "What are you doing this weekend?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm going to the BMBF posing club," and they look me up and down. Like, oh, just going to eat. I'm just going for the burgers afterwards. You know, relax. But, Rob, you about kind of like being happy on stage and enjoying the show. One of the things that I think makes a difference is just acknowledging at that point that you've done your best, sort of thing. But it also helps if you know you're the best you've ever been, and you know you're going to win the show. Maybe you can tell us a little story about Worlds when you felt like that.
Definitely. I'm not sure if I've already told this story on these. Maybe I haven't. Maybe it was one of them parallel universe voice stuff again. So yeah, I just think that like when you're really on the money on the day, it's a feeling that's hard to kind of. I guess it's hard to come by, but it's also like, you know, some of it must be confidence. But like, I remember speaking to David Kay coming off of prejudging in 2016. I mean, there's like 13 or 14 in the class, and the call outs were weird because I got moved to the center once and then moved out to the end very quickly. So it was almost like what probably had happened is I went in, they made up their mind and thought, right, we'll get him out of the mix of like getting sent to the back of the line. But at the time, obviously coming off stage thinking like, shit, I don't know whether I'm in the mix at all or if I'm like, or if I've just smashed it and I don't know. And no one was really giving a lot of feedback. But like, I remember coming off stage and Dave was like, just go for broke with the food now. Like, just like put the carbs in because you can relax and chill now. You're not going to spill at this point. And it was like, right, okay, cool. Because that was a learning experience for me as well. Because I think that's, 2016 was where I probably just started to come into my own with regards to really hitting like proper decent conditioning. Like when the year I won my pro carb was good, but it was still on the flat side, I think. So I went back to the hotel room, probably went through about 1.5 kilos of sweet potato. So by the time we'd obviously come back to do the big mash from Whole Foods, is buy the 70 pounds worth of potatoes. You get like 3 potatoes. But then added a little bit of fats in as well. So I thought, oh, this will be good. A little bit of salt. Came back through. But when we started pumping up backstage, like I was absolutely full to bust. Like it was like ridiculous. And I was like pumping up. And I looked down at my chest with the bands and I was like, there is absolutely no way I'm going to lose this show today. Because everything just looked ridiculous. I was like, I've never looked as good as this. I was like, no way I'm going to get beat today. And then, well, I guess the rest is history. But that's happened to me twice. And that is both times at World. So whether it's because you're just that lean and then you've had that run out in the morning of the prejudging. And then you've then had, obviously, had, you relax, you're a bit more food in. But I always seem to get better by the evening show. But yeah, it was just like, it's such a funny thing to try and explain to people, but just like knowing yourself, there's no way you're going to get beat. And it's just, it's class. It's only happened to me twice, and I hope it happens again because absolutely nailing it is, I guess it's hard to come by in bodybuilding for sure. So,
yeah, it was a good, I like that story. I'm waiting for that moment, I think.
What particular colour band do you need to use when you're pumping up? So
everyone is going to know what type of band to use now.
Well, that's one thing. Like, know in regards to pumping up when to go down. Obviously, at BNBF shows you get called, and there's also all the weights and stuff there. But I've seen people who arrive there, and the minute they walk in, before like the masters have even gone on, they start doing push-ups and stuff. And it's just like, wait until, I suppose it depends on like whether you've spilled or whatever, but I would do anything until.
It can really ruin a physique for sure. And this is not just kind of like bodybuilding bro analogy, but Owen Powell. Do you guys know what Owen Powell is?
Yeah.
So he's
me and Rob are the only actual true bodybuilders on this. Like James and Marcus have already said, like, yeah, I'm just really good. Like I just thought, like, I'll just go a bodybuilding show. We got a little old me who can't win anything. He was like the biggest bodybuilding fan of all time, but it doesn't really matter. So yes, Rob, I know who Owen Powell is.
So he's probably one of the original classic physique guys in the UK. He tinkers in and out. He's done the UKBFF. He's done Two Bros. He had an absolute nightmare with the show at one of the Two Bros. I don't know what on earth happened, but like everyone said that he was going to win, and he looked like he was going to win, and somehow got placed fourth. I don't know what happened, and it wasn't down to the way he looked because he looked phenomenal. But basically, when he did a UKBFF show, I remember him putting up this massive post saying like basically never competing with the UKBFF anymore because they had him pumping up for 2.5 hours.
Jeez.
Because it's like, your class is on next. Oh, no. It's definitely on next. Okay, cool. Right, pump up some more. Definitely going on. All right, there's 2 more bikini classes to go, and then you're on. And this went on for the 2.5 hours. And then he was like absolutely furious, but he said that he'd been stood on his legs that long, pumping up, and basically like getting like sweaty, and then like burning through his carbs, and just like, this whole process gone. I said the time he walked out, he was completely washed out. And I'm sure if anyone's ever had that feeling in the gym, when you've probably overdone it a little bit, like you've maybe gone through your 9th set of chest press of something, all of a sudden you feel what I can only describe as like you go underpants, where you suddenly feel like, oh.
You're in hype, aren't you, really? Yeah.
And then, so basically that happened to him, and he said like it completely ruined his look. So, and yeah, I've seen some of the pictures and stuff. It just looks like his legs have been like he's not dieted on the bottom half. But whereas you've seen the picture like the show day of that day, and the legs were peeled. So it's just like from literally being stood on them for that long. So don't pump up for too long, kids, on your first day.
Yeah, no, James, it's a good point as well. And you've got to be careful because it's tough. And I've helped out backstage at BNBF with glazing. It's tough to try and get, especially in the prejudge, it's just get a feel for when guys do need to pump up and stuff like that. And it does come with experience as well. It's getting a better idea of, all right, this class is on now. There's this many classes in front of me, and there's this many competitors in the class. So just get a little bit of an idea for it. But Rob, me and you spoke about this on the podcast before. Is I think to be conservative about pumping, pumping up backstage. You like to be a little bit more aggressive with it, but at the same time, you've done it so many times and it's tried and tested, and you know kind of when you need to start and stuff like that. Advice from me would be definitely for a beginner is to be on the more conservative side if you're just starting out, because don't do what you're saying, James, is like get backstage, and you're on like 6th class or whatever. Let's say you're a teen and you're on in the middle of the show or something like that, and you just start doing curls for 2 hours, basically having a workout. It's just not worth it. So like if you're just starting out, be conservative, and if you are a little bit more experienced, contact at Rob Waterhouse on Instagram and ask for the special show day pump up protocol.
Pump up protocol. What's the if putting on you all on the spot a little bit here, what's the best thing you've seen backstage at a pump up for any reason? We'll go with you at the bottom there, James.
So the first one that springs to mind is Ratty Ryan backstage at the No, it was at the British Finals.
We know if you've got Ratty Ryan in the sentence of a bodybuilding story, you know it's going to give you one, because I've probably got about 10 just off the bat straight away. So
considering before we'd even gone on stage for the evening show, he'd fallen asleep in the holding pen area. And then when we were pumping up, I was having my anabolic grapes.
Obviously.
Many others.
3 months down.
Looked over at him and he was just eating a peanut butter Kit Kat. And I was like, are you mental? Why are you having that? He's like, don't know, do you want some? And I started showing him.
Basically while spitting it out at you.
Yeah, it was just mad. Like everyone else was pumping up, and I just looked over at him. He wasn't even pumping up. He was just eating a pump.
Just eating a Kit Kat.
Well, I'll raise you a Kit Kat with a McDonald's from fellow lightweight Archie.
Archie.
It's quite well known to enjoy a full value meal before going on stage, and maintains a really tight waist. So shout out to Archie for being able to do it.
And he got himself a free toy, apparently, in the Happy Meal. So.
What
about you, Marcus? Anything you can think of?
Not really. I can remember one show there was like cupboards, but the doors were taken off, and for someone to have make more space for themselves to train, they stood inside the cupboard with the door, because obviously the door's off. Their own private, booth, pump booth.
I remember when we went to Worlds in 2009. Mick Batterby is a bit mental, he's just a mad Scotsman, in a nice way. He's not mental for anyone who's watching this. But he was I remember being really conservative with my pump up, and I think from the call outs and stuff from the pre-judging, I was nowhere in the show, so I was kind of thinking I'm gonna do a bit of a pump up, but I was 3rd call out or something, and he was like, "Hey Rob, go over here." I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And he's like, "This is brilliant for pumping up." And he had his feet, which I can only describe as what they call it's like toe fingers, where you spread your feet like this apart. But he had them integrated into a metal fence, which is like a cage. And he had his feet like this, locked into the cage. And he was doing the handstand push-ups on the side for his upper chest pump. And I was I couldn't do a single rep if I tried, but the way he managed to get his toes inside the actual fence part and just had him gripping on while he was doing push-ups, I was just that is ridiculous. How is he even doing that? But yeah, that was upper chest.
Shout out to everybody doing that next year then.
Yeah.
I'm trying the optimal upper chest pump. I seen there's a chap last year speaking about being on time for shows, Marcus. I can't remember the guy's name. Sorry, it was when I was helping out. There was a teen, one of the qualifiers last year. He was that late. He come on stage midway through prejudging, and he won his class.
Actually, come. So.
I hope not. It's a family show. But he yeah, I mean teenager, you know what I mean? So we've all been there. It was an embarrassing time for the guy, and but he went and won his class.
Did he?
Yeah. So shout out to him for doing that. But yeah, that was an interesting one for sure.
Brilliant.
Just speaking about like idiots backstage, like occasionally, obviously, very occasionally, you'll get an idiot who's there with his hood on in the corner. But they're very. I don't think there's only been like one or two.
Yeah.
Shows I've been to, and most of the time, they turn out to be all right. Like once the ice is broken. But speaking of people turning up late, there was one guy that turned up. He completely missed the prejudging at my first show, and he only came for the evening show. But he looked impressive, like amazing. And then they ended up giving him an invite to the final because he'd won his. He looked impressive enough to get one. But obviously they couldn't place him because he wasn't there for the prejudging. And then after the show, I remember coming off stage and everyone being like, "Oh, well done, mate. Well done, mate." And he came over and went, "Yeah, I would have won that if I'd have turned up for the prejudging." I was like, "Oh, cheers." But you didn't, though, did you?
Unlucky.
Funny. Got to be in it to win it. So, wasn't there a guy, James? And obviously, you don't have to throw him under the bus. But am I right in thinking that guy turned up in a suit one year for a show?
Yeah, he turned up. It was that show actually, and this is another thing. When I saw him, I was like, he had like a stone face on him, but he had like a full waistcoat, trousers over his tan, and he seemed a bit like angry when I saw him.
Getting tan all over his suit.
Apparently, he was overheard saying to someone, it's because someone made a comment like, "Oh, this guy's suited and booted for it," and he was overheard saying something like, "Oh, yeah, I'm going to get a job out of this." What?
Brilliant.
But yeah, he ended up being all right in the end. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend turning up to a show in a full tuxedo or suit or whatever.
If I could think of an outfit not to wear to a show, it definitely would be a suit.
I think
The most uncomfortable thing that you'd ever want to wear, especially with tan on.
Yeah.
So.
I was just going to say that I think also with generally when I was started bodybuilding, I thought everyone's going to be angry and be pissed off backstage or be out to get be helpful, but like it's very, very rare you would find. I don't think I've ever found someone where I just thought you're a prick. Like most people are generally nice. So yeah.
There's a guy, again, we're not throwing people under the bus, but maybe we are because maybe people...
But anyway.
Insert
permit meme. So,
I wonder if anyone knows about the guy that he's normally... when I've been backstage a couple of times, he's quite difficult with the glazers.
I know who he is.
And it's quite difficult to encourage him to like line up and go out. It's always like he's not ready and stuff like that. And he's also quite keen for what I can only describe as a ball slip on stage.
Oh, yeah.
So just to confirm, this happened when I went to that first show to watch my brother. Happened that show as well. And that was in 2013. It seems to be an annual thing.
It does seem to be an annual thing. And I bring it up because I thought it was quite funny at the show and then mentioned it to people and they were like, yeah, that's happened before. So if you do compete, look out for the guy that occasionally likes to slip out a ball.
If anyone wants a visual reference, he looks like the guy out of Love Actually. Actually does. So, we'll put a post up.
All right.
James with a meme.
Yeah, cheers, James. Thanks. All right. So, a couple of other points then before we finish, I think. I piggyback off what you were saying, Rob. More of like a serious advice thing. You won't go too much into it. But when you mentioned that you were that show when you were put into Midland and you were put outside and you didn't really know what was going on, you didn't know what the placings were. That's coming from you, who's now a judge as well. Sometimes you just can't second guess what's going on when you're on stage, because maybe they will. I remember when Chris Edge won the Northern, and they put him. They came out, they put him in the middle, and then they put him back. And we all knew that it was because he'd won, because we knew how good he was. But he didn't know that, and he wasn't sure. It was only when we come off and we were telling him, yeah, we think you've got this, if you can just keep it together. But it can be tough because you really don't know what's going on. And Marcus, when I competed with you at British last year, there was a couple of call-outs where it seemed like they had myself and Dan Crumpton like in 5 or 6. Weren't sure. They brought me out, and then they left me at the back, and they brought Dan out, and then they brought me out, and they brought Dan out, and it was really, really tough. You've just got to stick with it, because it's so easy just to lose your head, because you think, oh, I'm out of it, I'm still on the back. And if you are still on the back, there's a chance you can be brought forward, So it's really important just to try and not pay any mind.
I will definitely say this as well. From judging, it's often Vicky will do a first call out, especially in muscularity, after they've been through, and they'll just leave the first people where they are. So sometimes you've got the numerical call out. So if you've got 15 in a category or so, they might do the first 7 and then whatever, and bring them forward like that. And then the third call out is the first call out. So if you're on stage, you're just thinking, okay, like they might say in no particular order, okay, you get a call out. But there's often times where I've maybe like judged a show, and I'm thinking, I'm going to hold off on my scorecard because there is no way this is the actual first call out, no chance. And for whatever reason, Vicky's maybe decided to like just bring people forward to take a look at them, or you've got like 1 or 2 very obvious winners, and then for some reason that first call out wouldn't be like it is in the Olympia. When the Olympia, you made first call out, people are walking out and like shaking their fist, like, yes, I'm in. But like, yeah. Oh, what was that?
Cheers, Cara. Hi, Cara. No worries.
Bless you.
I thought you had a dog. I thought you had like a bark. What's she barking at us?
Just loudest sneeze of all time, James.
Oh, I see. It was a sneeze. Right. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Bless you. Anyway. Right. But yeah. So as I said, I'm obviously fallen victim to myself, because you can sometimes think, well, I don't really know where I am, especially when people come off prejudging pissed off and they're like, I don't know where I am. But actually, as I said, you may very well have just been a very clear winner, or you're in the mix straight away. But as I said, it took 3 call outs to get to the actual first call out. So never kind of judge a show from, being competing in it by where you kind of were at the start, because you'll often find as well, that some people need a couple of rounds to get through, to get worked in, and then they can often come up through the ranks.
Yeah.
They might be called out in the second call out right towards the end, but then by the end of prejudging and they're in that last call out and they might be in 3rd place. Just especially if you've got a lot of people on the lineup, it's very easy for someone to get overlooked.
Yeah, and that's what happened to me at the Southern. Me and Opio were put on the back line like fairly early, and I remember coming off stage thinking, what the hell's happened? And then that's the first time I met Erin.
Yeah,
and I was like, shit, like I don't think I'm placed there. And you were like, what? And like that was what reassured me. And then I saw you, and you were like, no, when people judge, they were like, right, that's the first and second definite. Now we've got to work everything else out. So again, just don't be disheartened when you come off the stage, like. And also, like, it's everyone's to play for in the evening as well.
Yeah, you genuinely, I couldn't believe that you were genuinely shocked when I was like, yeah, I think you've got this. I was like, oh, he's gonna know he's got it, of course. And he was like,
you say this about James, right? He knows what's coming. Right?
I know what's coming.
When we came off the prejudging at the Southern, I said, like, you absolutely walked that. I wasn't judging at the time, obviously. Because
the actual quote was, "If you haven't won, I'll eat my own hat."
Yeah. So pretty much like a foregone conclusion that he'd like absolutely smashed it. And then when James was announced the winner, he did the pantomime, or how should we say, what's the word? The Oscars speech. He went, "Oh, won!" So, I can't believe it.
In my defense, the Channel 4 cameras were there, so that's
the overwhelmed meme that went round afterwards for brilliant. But that was good. Good story time.
But one thing, like, just probably to finish off on, after your first show, how much food did you eat?
Oh, perfect. That was going to be my next show.
So first timers, if anyone gives you any advice, like Mr. Waterhouse here now, in his very ripe age of competing for 10 years, and I tell you that just eat some fruit after the show, yeah, you can tell me go fuck myself for sure. But I think the very first show, 2008 in Scotland, we booked TGI's for 9 o'clock. Managed to make it there, I think, by about 9:30. And I can tell you what I ordered, if you like. I ordered a tower starter, which was basically, the shrimp, the barbecue sauce, the deep fried shrimp. You get the chicken, and then you get I think it's like either the onion rings or they're like the sesame chicken dippers. And then I ordered a cheeseburger and fries for mains, and then I think a Wookiee cookie sundae for the dessert.
So don't do that, guys. I'll go quick. After that first time I competed, I just had a collection. As Marcus, yourself, the box. Yeah, the famous post-show box. So I brought that with me to the show. We also stopped off at numerous fast food joints on the way back. Not more than one. I was sick hanging out the back of my car in McDonald's car park because I just inhaled as much shit as I possibly could. The following day continued with cheesecakes and such. And I was up a good 20 pounds within a couple of days. I'd grown an extra human, basically.
I must say as well, I'm not sure if you guys know, but Marcus 100% would absolutely kill all of us in an eating contest after a show.
Didn't know.
I'm not wrong in saying that, am I? I know that there's legendary stories that 3 weeks after post-show, Marcus is still eating. So,
what did you see from 2019? That collection I had that I built up. I'll try and put it on Instagram, but it was crazy, man. That was
good as Ratty Ryan's.
Oh, I know that one, Marcus. Yeah, I was thinking, I need to up my game.
Yeah, man, that took me some time going for. I think I was eating. Obviously, I was eating the takeaways and stuff, but in that box, I was eating like 10 chocolate bars a day on top of everything else, man. It was crazy.
Then you have like 5 different flavors of Oreos, like shipped in from.
Well, in 2015, Worlds. So we went. Obviously, it was Miami. We ate all the good places in Miami, and then me and my wife flew straight to China. And China, they got a crazy amount of Oreos. Like, I thought America would have been good, but China was crazy. And just stocked up. Actually, I had to fly back to London before flying to China because it was cheaper that way. So that's what we did. And the Goldings were on the same plane, and that's the first time I met Ben Golding, his mum and dad, Jane and Enzo. And when we got to, obviously it's the first time we've ever met him. Spent time in Miami, got to know him, and then when we got into London, I was like, "Can I empty some of my stuff?" And I just gave him money, like American dollars. I think I bought a pillow out in Miami. Me and Bass bought the same memory foam pillow. I gave that to him. I think I gave him clothes and all my junk food, just so when I went to China, I could restock on more junk food. And another story is 2013, my first year competing, I went to Miami. I went by myself, and I took my George Foreman and stuff to cook all my food. And then when I came back to England, Cam was like, "Where's George Foreman?" I said, "Yeah, I dashed out. I needed space." I literally packed.
Was that year that Ben Golding got ill from drinking all the tap water?
That was 2015, yeah.
Comedy of errors. Yeah, he just decided to everyone would keep refilling the 3-gallon jug. So not only was it bad for his system, but he was drinking 3 gallons of it a day. Thinking, why was he so ill? While everyone else was off eating and enjoying themselves, he was in bed sick as a dog. So unlucky.
So I think all of you can attest to looking up the menu for months on end before you end up going to the restaurant. So we went for a Chinese, but before I'd even got out the door, like when I came off stage from the overall, I smashed a pack of 4 Sainsbury's cookies and a full bar of dairy milk. And then as I was walking, I remember walking out and like Dan Argent was still there because he couldn't pee. He was waiting to do his drug test. Like everyone was going home and he was just still stood there. But then we ended up going for a Chinese, and I think I did like the share appetizer to myself, and then 2 mains and 2 sides. And I just remember eating, and then I just hit the wall, and I just was like, oh no, I'm going to throw up. And then ended up being fine. But I remember like before we'd even got the food, I was saying to my brother, like, I reckon I'll probably eat this and then probably get a Domino's later. I'm just going to get a Domino's. But yeah, hit the wall with that, and then ended up going home, and I just felt hungover after that. Like, I didn't even drink anything. It was just the food.
I think for any first timer, I think you have to experience that, because I think it is all good and fun. Like I remember my 2 mates were wrestling in the hotel room, throwing water over each other, while I sat there eating like Homer Simpson with a bag of Doritos in front, Haribo in the next bag, chocolate on the next one. It was just like a frenzy of just eating while them 2 just sat there wrestling and not bothering what they were doing. So yeah, funny. But so yeah, you go out and experience that, because you will feel sick, you'll feel terrible, but it's all good fun.
Worth it.
Well, Rob, you must have heard about Lewis when he was like halfway through his, I think he was eating Chinese, or he's in a Cosmo, or you can eat buffet. And then he got like a mini stroke or whatever. You hear about that story?
No.
Oh, you have to ask him, because he will tell it better. But yeah, he was halfway through. He's been eating junk after a show, and then he was halfway through his all-you-can-eat buffet, and his face.
Oh, he didn't he? He did.
Yeah, he couldn't move, and then Ash was like, "We need to go to hospital." And he was like, "No, let me finish first."
At least he tries to finish.
So the problem is with asking Lewis this thing is like, Lewis is the biggest drama queen I've ever known. So this year alone, he's got through coronavirus and swine flu and a stroke, so, all in the same year. And then yeah, he's still just going train as normal. So hypochondriac is the word. So yeah, bless him.
Shocking.
Funny. So have we got any I guess words of advice to sort of leave it on with regards to any first timers getting into, like what to expect, or maybe sort of things going forward? So
yeah, so for me, one thing I would say is, like, regardless of how you do on your first show, like getting there is a big enough achievement in itself. But also, like, regardless of how you do, go and see the judges after and get feedback, because like, how else are you going to know how to do better or improve, especially if you've got a qualifier, if you've got a British final invite. You need to know how you can step your game up for the next one, because I know better than anyone the standard is in a different world compared to a qualifier. But yeah, I'd definitely, like, the judges are there afterwards. They're really friendly. I remember my first piece of feedback was, don't do the scared dog pose from Vicky McCann, because I was posing weird, even though I'd been to posing classes. But yeah, go and get feedback, because it's there for you.
I think going to see the judges after the show is super, super important. If I didn't do that after my first show, I definitely would have carried on competing, I don't think, because I would have just ended up killing myself with cardio and whitefish.
Dieted yourself into the ground.
Yeah.
It's a big thing, isn't it, with regards to the feedback? And I think there's always that little bit of like tenseness, because I guess everyone who obviously comes up, and I'm pretty good with faces and remembering people who've competed, to be fair, when people ask for their feedback, but it is really hard sometimes to give people feedback who just are nowhere near the mark. Like, you know, you just like, you need more of everything. You need more muscle. You need better condition. So, but as I said, I think the people who, what's the nicest thing about judging is when you remember someone who competed. And it's even the same for, you know, for some of yourselves who've competed, like especially you, Aaron, and I'm like, before I knew you and I've seen you compete, and then obviously then seeing how you then progressed over the period of time, that's really rewarding for a judge to see, especially when you've told someone, go away and work on your back, or go away and sort your tan out, and then they come back the next show, maybe a year down the line, or even like, 6 weeks later, and you're like, oh yeah, that was the guy with a really bad tan, or the guy who had like no muscle last time and they've improved. That means that they've taken that, feedback on the chin. And we've often said it with like the straight from the table, after a show, like, they're not personal comments. It's you're there to be judged, and there's someone who's giving you feedback on what your body parts look like. So you can either do two things: one, complain about what's said, or two, go away and work on it and be better. And therefore, overall, you're going to be a better bodybuilder down the line. And I'm sure, from coaching, I've helped James and Marcus in the past, like if I come on this podcast and say that Marcus is a limmy bodybuilder and he needs to work out on all this in between,
I was just figured
why do that.
So, I was about to say, that's why I've put in chest and back twice a week now. So
That's good. Not giving you a complex or anything.
Yeah.
Because I said that will make the massive difference to you down the line. So you say you can either go and whinge about it and maybe go and do it at the federation and hope for a better result, or you can just go back to the drawing board. And I mean, I know it's been probably a bit of a tough time for you as well, hasn't it, James? Like, from how your season, what was it, 2016 or 17?
What, the 18?
18. Wow, Jesus. So you can tell everyone. So you did the qualifier, didn't you? And you won the Southern overall, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you didn't place at that finals that year, did you?
No.
Which was wounding for sure, from a coach's point of view and for your point of view. But I mean, how have you felt, like, from then to now? Like, where are you mindset wise with that?
So first of all, you're frozen. Is he frozen for anyone else?
Oh
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll roll out the end. You just crack on, Jim.
Oh God, he's gone. Oh, he's
Hey, okay.
yeah, so, like, I don't know. So obviously devastating that, especially when how well I did at the qualifier, and then obviously seeing the improvement between the qualifier and the final, and then not placing. But I could honestly stand on the stage. Like, there's nothing worse than if I'd have stood on the stage and thought, oh, well, I only half-arsed it. Like, I had cheat meals every week. I wasn't sticking to my diet. I wasn't training properly. But, like, I knew I could stand on the stage and, like, I've given it absolutely everything. Like, there was nothing more I could have done. And, like, I can look at all the other bodybuilders on that stage who placed above me and know, like, they were better than me. Like, I remember seeing Alex Mackay at a show. Like, I think he placed second. And then just on the show day, he was just like, he just blown up. He was huge.
It was.
Just seeing, like, the standard. I've never known anything like that before. And it's amazing how the standard can change year to year. Like, if I'd have come in that condition the year after, like, who knows what would have happened. But, like, I'm fine with it. Like, I knew I couldn't have given it any more. So, like, I knew, like, there was nothing more I could have done. That was my absolute best, and it just wasn't good enough. But, like, we know what I need to work on, and it's being worked on.
I think you've just always got to know that it doesn't. You can win a show, and then you can go to a show, which is what you're summarising is you can go to a show then better than you were when you won, and do worse. It's not football. You're not scoring more goals than the other team. It's you're putting yourself up on a stage, and there might be people that are judged to be better than you on that day. And it can suck a lot, and just not to be downtrodden by it. Like you say, you've gone away now, and you're working on all those things to come back and rectify that really, and make sure you can do everything to make it not happen again.
It was kind of bittersweet. Like, obviously, no one wants to be on that back line when they're calling the winners out, but, like, obviously my brother was there. He did really well, so that was cool to see. Opio, who I competed at my first show against Opio, and he was, like, in no shape at all. And this is another thing when it comes to feedback. Like, that guy every year was getting feedback and just coming back better and better and better, and just wasn't taking no for an answer. And, like, I remember we were both he was a heavyweight at Body Power, and, like, I ended up coming out on top there. And then at the qualifier, the Southern qualifier, it was me and him, and I ended up beating him there. And then the transition between that and the finals, he was just, like, undeniable.
I think that that OPO's kind of story from when he won his pro cards, one of my favourite, and it kind of inspired me a lot to like push on to finals last year. Was, you know, again, we'll say I was the one telling you after you won your qualifier that you had that, no question, and then you were one of my favourites for the pro card that year. And I'll say it now, like when OPO walk out on stage, I tell everyone, I just said, what the fuck is that? Like, what is this human in front of me? Because I was so impressed. The changes he'd made in that time, he'd listened to the feedback, like we're saying, and he wasn't taking no for an answer, like you just said, and he just implemented it and blew everyone away.
Yeah. And I think I'd say, like, as far as any advice for first timers, is one, especially if you don't do well at a qualifier, first of all, it's kind of like maybe like the 48-hour rule, first of all.
Yeah.
When you come out off stage, you know, don't make any rash decisions about your prep or what you're going to go and eat, because you may very well decide in 2 days' time that you're going to do another qualifier because you weren't quite ready. So kind of like to, you know, it's like, I guess that rule goes for the same side about not letting you, not having to go at your friends or they don't do very well in something. Like you get a 24-hour window not to kind of like slag you off and say, James, right, you didn't place in the show. Whereas I can say now, James Poyner never placed the British finals. Yeah. So I think that's one thing, is not to make decisions based in that first time you come off stage. And we spoke about before, Aaron, on I think we did when we did your throwback episode, to treat the year as a season and not that one show, because, you know, okay, it's quite hard when you maybe come off the back of a British finals, but if you didn't do well in your first qualifier, unless you'd absolutely nailed it and you were 100% on the money, you know, you may then say, even still, get to the end of the year and you may very well be the top 2 in Britain. You maybe got beat by one other guy, but you may still very well be the best in the country at that point. Everyone else, just standard might not be as good as that when you get to the qualifier. So kind of don't make decisions based on how well you do in a qualifier. And kind of said, like, you know, if you ever get the chance to compete in a British finals, I think that's what's so cool about it being an open finals this year, is that, you know, just go and do it, because then you'll really know how you stand and where you've got to work on. So
yeah, cool. All right, and I think we've covered a lot there, guys. So
pretty good. Hour and 20 minutes. That's for our first episode of Saved by the Dumbbell.
Yeah, 2 hours and 20 minutes if you count the hour that it took us to set up the call. So nice one.
We won't put that part up on the episode.
No, there's a
lot of me complaining that my camera doesn't work. So
unlucky. Marcus, James, thank you very, very much for joining us on Natty Muscle Radio. Yeah. All right, yeah.
2 editions. So yeah, 1 pro, 1 not so pro, and yeah.
Yeah, sweet. All right, we're gonna. Is this gonna be like you hang up? No, you hang up.
Yeah, that's mate.
Right, wicked. Natty Muscle Radio out.
See you later. Cheers. Bye bye.